Hi, friends. I know it's been a few days. I've been really busy with work and life and family, but I wanted to get into the kitchen today and make something that is really simple, um, a great recipe, and you can really blow some people away with this recipe. It's a traditional white wedding cake. And if you've ever been at a wedding and you've had a cake and you've been like, oh my gosh, that cake is out of this world, that's this recipe. And it's really simple and I think it's foolproof. So we're going to make it a traditional white wedding cake. It's going to be 4 layers. So I'm using 2 9-inch pans. I trace the bottom of them in my parchment paper and then put my parchment paper in here. I put a little dollop of grease on the bottom so they'd stick. Then I put my parchment paper and I greased it real good and made sure I greased around the sides too. This is a 9-inch pan. We're going to do 2 of these and then we're going to let them cool overnight and we're going to cut each of them in half. So we're going to end up with 4 layers. But I've got a lot going on today, folks. I have a tremendous amount in the corner with chops going on. It's my niece's baby shower on Saturday, and she asked me to make potato salad. So I'm making my mom's potato salad, and I'm making about 14 pounds, 10 for the baby shower, a little bit for my brother Donnie, and a little bit for my brother Russell, and a little bit to keep here. So we're going to be doing that in the next video, my mom's potato salad that's out of this world. It's a family favorite of ours and everybody loves my mom's potato salad. So I've got my eggs cooking over here for that. But anyhow, this recipe, we're going to do this cake and it's for an employee of mine. We're having a big sale on Saturday and we always have a dish to pass. She recently got engaged and she's just a great gal. She's just, her parents own the hardware store that used to be my parents' meat market. She is a great gal. And I went to her the other day and I said, I have to make a cake for my niece's baby shower. What should I make? Should I go with a peach filling? Should I go with a raspberry? What do you think? And she said, oh, I'd go with the raspberry filling. So we're doing a 4-layer cake, raspberry filled with a buttercream icing. And I'll decorate it tomorrow and I'll put pictures of it once it's put together and decorated. Today we're only baking the cake. That's this video. And I'll put pictures in the comments of how I decorated it. Her favorite color is like a light purple lilac. And her sister told me it's not a muted purple. I thought, what the heck does that mean, muted? The new generations behind mine, life always changes, right? And evolves, and we have different languages that we bring into the evolution of life. And it's not a muted purple. Well, I'd never heard that. So I thought, what the heck is a muted purple? But it's that real drab. You see vehicles that are that real muted, flat, drabby color. So we're not doing a muted. We're going to do a light lilac. And I think I'm going to do the base a very light lilac. So you're like, is that lilac? And then blend it into white at the top. And I'm probably, I might pipe some lilacs on the cake. I've never done that. And I'm just beginning to do cake decorations, folks. I've been baking cakes my whole life. But the decorating part, I am very new to. But anyhow, if you want to impress, this is the cake. So I got my cake pans ready. This cake, these 2 cakes are going to be baked at a 325-degree oven. And the first thing I like to do is put my dry ingredients in. I have 1 cup of sifted flour here with 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. 1 cup of sifted flour, 3/4 teaspoon of salt. 1 cup of granulated sugar. Boom. one, and it must be, and you have to be careful for this, folks, because we're living in a world where groceries and food has skyrocketed, but yet the portions are smaller. So cake mixes that were traditionally 15.25 ounces are now like 12 ounces. But this recipe is old school, and it's made with a 15.25 ounce white cake mix. And I use Pillsbury because they still have a 15.25 box. So we're going to open that. So it's part scratch, part cake mix. But when you're doing a layer cake, friends, you have to have almost like, for the layers to be sturdy enough to withstand your fillings and not crack and not smush your fillings. So you want a moist cake, but you also have to have some sturdiness to it. So it's not a heavy, dense pound cake that has a really dense structure, and it's not a fluffy, airy cake pancake. It's kind of in between, but it's very moist. So don't think it's not. So I'm going to give that just a little stir here for a minute. Beautiful. I hope you are all having a great week. It's a busy week for me. Like I said, we have a sale at work, and I work every other weekend, but I have, because of the sales falling on my weekend off, I'm working the weekend, and the sale's on Saturday and Mother's Day Sunday. So I'm fortunate enough to have Mother's Day off. But I'm a little worn out. Anyhow, we're going to add 1 1/3 cup water. 1 1/3 cup of water. 4 egg whites. Just the whites. We want a really white cake. 4 egg whites. 1 cup of sour cream. This gives it that richness, that moist, like, oh my gosh, this cake, I wonder what's in it. It's so delicious. And it helps bind everything. 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. And I just use like a Wesson all-purpose vegetable oil for that. A teaspoon of vanilla, and if you've watched my videos, you know I like my vanilla. So I'm going to go a little heavy on the teaspoon. I'm going to keep pouring till it overflows. Boom. And this recipe doesn't, it's optional. I add it. Just like 1/8 of a teaspoon of almond extract. It gives it a different kind of a twist. And it gives it that nice almond. If you know almond extract, it has a really, really nice tones of flavor in it. And we are going to mix this all in. And we want to not over-mix it. You don't want to beat your cakes to death, right? So, but everything must be incorporated. There's a lot going on in there. So I'm going to mix it about 2 or 3 minutes. I'm going to let it all incorporate, and then I'm going to do a scrape down and a mix, a scrape down and a mix. Boom. It all looks like it mixed in there. And that was what? About 30 seconds, 45 seconds. It wasn't long. I'm going to get to the bottom and make sure there's no dry ingredients wedged under there. I'm going to scrape my spatula. We're going to whip it up. about another, I don't know, half a minute. Like I said, we don't want to overbeat our cake mix. Sometimes when you overmix a baked good, it can become a little crumblier, a little more coarser. And I want to stay with this nice, moist flavor. And that only took a couple minutes, right? To add those extra ingredients. And I'm using two, like I said, 9-inch round cake pans. And there's enough of this for both of them. And here's, you know, I do a lot of research. I watch a tremendous amount of cooking shows, read a tremendous amount of cookbooks. I probably devote 3 to 10 hours a week on my off time, maybe an hour, several nights, just recipes, cooking shows, because it's just such a passion of mine. We're going to call that good. And the bakers, like the baker that I got this recipe from, he weighs the batter, folks. He weighs the batter in each pan, so each 9-inch cake pan has exactly the same amount of batter, and the layers are going to be completely uniform. I'm not doing that, folks. I'm not on that level. I don't care to be on that level. This is all fun for me, and not that it wouldn't be fun to weigh the cake batter. I'm just not doing it. Nope. So I'm going to shake down my beaters. And this cake smells out of this world. You've got that vanilla and that almond extract. My hands are very clean, so I'm going to whisk down the beaters. I scrub my hands endlessly before I start cooking and baking, and I scrub them throughout the process. I scrub them with soap and bleach water. Yep, I'm that person. I just want to make sure my hands are meticulously clean. My girlfriend said, "What are you doing for Mother's Day?" And quite often I cook, but I'm not cooking this year. We're getting it catered from Eat and Run Catering out of Williamsport, Pennsylvania. And that gal has an amazing business, and we've had stuff from her before. She's got a beautiful menu for her catering, and the food is just out of this world. And she's got a beautiful establishment, and I've got another girlfriend. Her and I chuckle and laugh. I don't eat just anywhere, folks. Nope. I'll go in and have a hot cup of tea, and I'll look at the grounds of where I'm eating, and I'll determine then. I like to get a good look at the kitchen and a pretty good look at the staff. Because I'm just, I like to eat from clean environments. So anyhow, we're going to pour just about half of the batter, and you can come back and add more. It's almost impossible to take away. So just add some. You're going to shake it down. I always like to do the shake down and put that aside. That's about half full, maybe a little more. I think we actually did really well. I'm going to make sure these are very, that I've shaken them down. The tops are very flat. Because when it gets in the oven, it's going to start the baking process immediately. I've had my oven preheating for about 20 minutes. And that's about half. See that, folks? They're both about half. So we did really good with that. They're both about evenly poured. And you see how I shook them down and I got the tops really flat. So we're going to pop that right into the oven. 325 degrees. There's our second one. 325 degrees. I put them in the oven, and I put them back in the oven on the rack at the same spot, so side by side, so that they'll cook evenly. Because your oven's different temperatures and different locations of the oven. So that's our traditional white wedding cake. It's simple. You don't have to. I'm going to cut each cake in half again, so I'm going to have 4 layers. You can do a 2-layer cake. My raspberry filling, I'll give you that recipe. That's nothing more than, I don't know, just pulled mine out of the freezer because I had made some a while back and I didn't use it all. So there was a couple of cups of raspberries in here, 2, maybe 3. There was like a 1/4 cup of honey. And maybe I squeezed a half a lemon, so maybe a teaspoon of lemon. Your lemon's going to keep your berries and keep your fruits really bright and fresh. That acid is going to keep them as fresh in the cooking process as they can possibly be. That's all that's in here. I'm going to defrost that. I have another container of raspberries in the fridge. And these are getting a little, a little yucky. So I'm going to take these and I'm going to stir these into my raspberry filling, my jelly filling. And here's the thing. So you've got your 2.5 cups of raspberry, like your 1/4 cup. You can use an 1/8 cup of honey, depending on how tart, how sweet you want it. And here's the thing. You can add more honey as you go. You can't take away, folks. So just add little bits at a time until you're liking. So you've got the honey, you've got the raspberries, you got the lemon juice. And once in a while, I'll add a tablespoon of butter because I'm the butter queen. You know that. So everything's better with butter. So, and I just think the butter gives it a richness. And I'll probably, when this defrosts, depending on how thick it is, I might add a teaspoon of butter. And so you put that in a saucepan and you cook it down to your liking. Here's the thing. You can add a little water to it to loosen it up a little bit. You can add a little more honey to thicken it up. But pay attention to this. Once you take it off of the hot stove and it starts to cool, it's going to thicken quite a bit more as it cools. So don't over honey it to try and thicken it up. If you like the consistency and you like for jam, I do this a lot for jam, and I like a kind of a medium jam. I don't want a really thick jam, and I don't want a runny jam. I want kind of a medium, kind of like it stays on a spoon. So if it's just a tad bit runny, when you take it off and cool, it's going to thicken up. So I don't want it any. So this is going to be my filling. So I'm going to do a layer of cake, a layer of buttercream, a layer of raspberry filling, cake, buttercream, raspberry filling, cake, buttercream, and then the whole thing. And I will certainly put pictures of the finished product in my comments. But that's going to be our traditional recipe for our traditional white wedding cake, folks. I hope you have a great day. I hope you're enjoying this spring, and I'll see you in my next video. Take care.